Hello, so we're going to get into the video very shortly, but I just wanted to do a quick introduction. This video is going to be quite a long video. It's not something that's designed for anyone with a short, shitty attention span. Set aside the next 35 minutes. Actually pay attention. Don't just watch it while you've got something else going on in the background. Sit somewhere quiet where you can watch the whole thing. Feel free to make some notes if you need to. And yeah, let's get into it. Welcome to the Superhero Physique system. Right, welcome to the Superhero Physique system. As I said in the intro, this is going to be a bit of a longer video, so pay attention first of all, and feel free to make some notes if you need to. Let's get right into it. So, we're going to cover quite a few different things in here. We're going to talk about who this is for, what the goal is specifically. We're going to cover a couple of myths around what it actually takes to build a superhero physique. We're going to look at your current situation now, what's going right, what's going wrong, and what's possible if you put this system into place. Then we're going to go through probably the most important part, the 5 biggest mistakes you're making, and the fixes in order to get you looking like a superhero. And then I'm going to give you an example of mapping this out, of how this might look in an example over, say, like a 12, 18-month period. So first of all, who this is for and who it's not. This is not for guys who just want to lose a bit of weight, who want to get a bit more toned and want to look like a normal guy. The best way I would describe it, right, is this is not for guys who are currently really out of shape, really overweight, and just want to look normal and just want to no longer be fat. Okay? Perfectly fine goal, but that's not what this is about. This is about guys who want to take it to the next level and actually have a physique that, turns heads, that looks like a superhero or a movie star, that wouldn't look out of place on like a Men's Health front cover, that sort of thing. And it's also for guys who want a predictable way to lose fat and build muscle. They're fed up with looking the same every year. They want a system that they can follow. And most importantly, they're willing to change their approach. They're actually willing to do the work that's required to look like a superhero. So the goal is not this. We're not trying to look like a bodybuilder, not trying to be the next Mr. Olympia. When I started going to the gym, I never wanted to look like a bodybuilder. This was never my goal. This was what I wanted, right? I remember I think it was 2011, when I went to see Captain America, the First Avenger. I was hungover as shit. I think I'd just been out for my mate's 20th birthday or something. Went and saw Captain America, First Avenger. And I'd already been going to the gym for a couple of years, but that was the kind of my awakening when I thought, yeah, that's what I want to look like. Other examples here: Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, of course. Bradley Cooper. I know it's not a superhero movie, but I remember seeing him in A-Team, thinking that's a great physique. Like, he's lean, he's got a good chest, he's not, bodybuilder huge, but he looks good. Like, if you saw this physique at a beach, people are going to notice. Brad Pitt in Troy, great example, and Ryan Reynolds in Blade Trinity. These are the kind of physiques that when I first got into the gym, this was what I was trying to emulate. And hopefully that's the same for you. You're not trying to look like a bodybuilder, but you want to have big chest, big shoulders, but also that lean, trimmed look. However, this was the progress I made over 7 years. So this was me at age 18 on holiday in Egypt, around when I started training. I say training, but it was when I started going to the gym. I wasn't training properly. Over 7 years, I made a little bit of progress, although it's pretty difficult to notice. And that was simply because I was not doing any of the right things with my diet and training. I was focusing on all the wrong advice, and I wasn't doing what I'm going to teach you in this video. When I fixed things, when I finally figured out where I'd been going wrong at around age 25 in 2016, this was the progress I made in about 15 months. I made more progress in those 15 months than I had in the previous 7 years. Not because I uncovered some crazy secret or some special diet hack or anything like that. It's because I started doing the basics, the stuff that works to build muscle, has always worked and will always work going forwards. And that's what I'm going to teach you in this video. And just to show you, I'm not someone who got in shape in my 20s and then got out of shape as I got older. this was me age 29, then age 32, and then most recently last year at age 34 when I did my first photo shoot in, I think it was 8 years since I did my last photo shoot. Bought some Wolverine claws, and I'm pretty proud of these results. So just to show you, this stuff works whether you're in your early 20s or if you're in your 30s as well. So just so you know, it's not something that it only works if you're younger, if you've got a better metabolism, all that sort of stuff. I've kept this going well into my 30s, and I've got no sign of slowing down. And over the years, I've worked with plenty of guys, teaching them these exact same methods, getting them in the best shape of their life as well. But you're not here for that. You're not here about me or my clients. You want to get stuck into it. So let's begin with that. A couple of myths, right? So myth number one, Hollywood physiques are all built from steroids. Now, I wanted to address this first because it's a bit of an elephant in the room. A lot of those physiques I showed, there is a chance they probably took something to look a certain way on screen, and I don't deny that. Okay, if I was an actor who wasn't really into the gym, and someone said, "Hey, we're going to pay you millions of dollars to star in this superhero movie, but you need to look like a comic book character in 6 months," I'm probably going to hop on some steroids to shortcut that process. I'm not denying that. However, most of these physiques, I say most of them because there are a few Hollywood physiques that are a bit questionable, but the vast majority of these physiques, I do believe they did it naturally. And even if they didn't, they are 100% achievable naturally. The difference is you're not going to be able to take the same approach that a lot of these actors do. If you've ever looked up a certain actor's workout or diet routine and found an article that says this is what they ate, this is how they trained, that kind of approach is never going to work. You need to take a different approach. You probably need to take a little bit longer, especially if you're going to do it naturally, but it is 100% possible. Myth number two, you need to spend hours in the gym every day and do cardio as well. That's one of the common things you hear from these actors. They'll say how they trained 2-3 hours every day, did cardio on top of that, and it was a brutal regime. And that's why a lot of regular guys look at that and think, well, us normal guys, we can't do that because we've got jobs and families. We can't just dedicate our entire life to living in the gym. But the truth is, you only need 3 to 5 workouts a week for around 1 hour each. You don't even need to do cardio. I've done plenty of cuts and fat loss phases where I didn't even bother doing cardio. All I did was have a step count, and I just focused on my weightlifting workouts. When your training is set up correctly, you don't need to be in the gym for hours at a time. You can do 3 to 5 good workouts a week, and you don't need to do cardio if it's not something you want to include. There's ways around it. Myth number 3, you need to eat bland meals for the rest of your life. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can just eat whatever you like and get in the best shape of your life, because that's not true. You are going to have to make some changes to your diet. You're going to have to find ways to hit your calorie targets, hit your protein targets, and also eat healthy, nutritious foods. So you can't just be eating junk food all the time. But as long as you're finding the right kind of meals that are healthy enough, that fit within your calorie and protein requirements, you don't need to be eating chicken, broccoli, and rice every single meal like a lot of these actors claim they do, right? It's never going to be something you stick to. You do have to make sacrifices. You're not going to be able to eat absolutely everything you want to, especially if you're focusing on fat loss, but your meals don't have to be bland and boring and out of cold Tupperware. And the next myth, you don't have the right genetics. This is the stupidest one, because at the end of the day, it's pointless arguing over, because you can't change your genetics. Yes, you might not have the genetics to be the next Mr. Olympia. Most of us don't, right? But what you can do, and what every guy is capable of, is maxing out your genetic potential. And even if you have less than average genetics for building muscle, I still think if you do everything correctly and you train and diet in the right way for years, you can still max out your genetic potential and you will still look better than 99% of guys out there. So your current reality right now, you've probably been training for at least 1 to 2 years. You're not a stranger to the gym. You eat well most of the time. Maybe you do a bit of meal prep. You take your supplements. You have your protein shakes. And you've made some progress. just by showing up, being consistent, you've maybe leaned down a little bit, you've noticed a little bit more muscle. And based on that, the fact you've been fairly consistent for a few years, it's proof that you're not lazy. You know that you can do the work, you're willing to work hard, but you want a system. You want to see the results from your effort. And at the moment, your workouts are probably a bit inconsistent, if you're honest about it. There's a lack of structure, there's a lack of intensity. You probably don't know if you're cutting or bulking, whether you should be focusing on fat loss. Maybe you've jumped back and forth between one or two, and after a couple of years, you just never look any different. You don't know how to measure and track your progress, so you couldn't honestly answer if what you're doing is working. You don't know when to make adjustments. You don't know how to make adjustments because you're not tracking any data. And even though you made a little bit of progress in maybe the first couple of months, first year or so, your progress has stalled. And for a while now, you just haven't seen any changes to your physique. And based on how much time and effort you've been putting into this, you know that you should look better. You feel like you should have better results than what you currently do for the amount of time you've spent on this. So what is possible? If you fix this, you will be able to make predictable changes to your physique. This is the reality that I've basically been able to live in for the last 10 years. I can decide if I want to look leaner, I know exactly how to do it, and I know I'll be able to get there in a certain amount of time. If I want to build more muscle, if I want to get stronger, I know how to do that because it's predictable. You can have absolute clarity around what needs to be done each day with your diet, with your training, so that you can make consistent progress each week. You can also, and this is a big thing, you can choose clothes that actually show off your physique, not hide it. One of the things I love being able to do is when I go on holiday, it sounds silly, but I pack enough t-shirts for every day, and I also pack a tank top or a sleeveless for every day. Way too much in my suitcase, but it's because I want to show off my physique. And honestly, that is when you are able to choose what you wear or go without a shirt because you know you've got a good physique. Some people will look at that as arrogant. Firstly, I don't give a shit, and you shouldn't either. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look to look more attractive, especially in front of your partner as well. That's a big thing as well. Being able to be shirtless, be in a nice fitted t-shirt, knowing that not only other people but your partner finds you physically attractive. It's something that's lost these days. And I think deep down, a lot of guys wish they could feel that way. And I'm going to show you how to get the physique you want so that you can have that. So the 5 mistakes, told you we're going to get into it as quickly as we can. First thing is accepting weight loss. And what I mean by this, right, is the amount of guys that I speak to who say they want to get leaner, they want to be more jacked and have that kind of superhero physique. But then they say, oh, I don't want to weigh less than 85 kilos, or I don't want to lose more than 10 kilos. They have this number in mind of how much they think they need to weigh in order to look a certain way. And that is completely misguided. Unless you are a very big guy, we're talking over 6 foot, and you've got a lot of muscle, you're probably not going to be 85, 90 kilos lean. A lot of guys who are 85 kilos, they're going to look soft. They're going to have too much body fat. It's not going to be from extra muscle. And just to show you some examples here, right? This is me on the right, and I'm a bit shorter than the average guy. I'm 5'5", so my numbers are a little bit skewed. But I'm 65 kilos in this photo here. This was a couple of weeks before my photo shoot. When I put this video up a few months ago, I had people in the comments. I had hundreds of comments, people accusing me of taking gear at 65 kilos. And another example here, one of my clients, John, he's about, I think he's average height, about 5'9", 73 kilos. Most guys would hear the number 73 kilos and think that if they got down to that level, they would look skinny. They would look starved and it wouldn't look good on them. But if you've got a decent amount of muscle and you actually get your body fat down to this level, like 10 to, I'm probably a bit leaner than 10% here, but between 10 and 14%, where you can see your abs, your body weight is going to be lower. And a lot of guys are holding themselves back from having the physique they want because they've attached themselves to this idea that they need to weigh a certain amount. No one gives a shit how much you weigh. If you've got an impressive physique, no one's going to be asking you, oh yeah, but how much do you weigh? Because you look jacked, you look lean. And you need to accept that in order to get this lean physique, you're going to have to weigh less than you think. You're going to have to lose a lot more body fat than you realize. This is something I go through with all of my clients. Next thing is taking a data-driven approach. Right now, you're probably not doing this at all. Yes, you're training consistently. You feel like you're eating well. You're meal prepping, but there's no data. You're just going on feelings. Your training sessions, you're just training how you feel in the moment. You think you're pushing yourself, but you don't know because you're not tracking the numbers. Your diet is inconsistent because you're not tracking your calories, and you're not tracking your body weight either. So you have no idea if you're losing the correct amount of weight to get the physique you want. You need to track data. The way I like to do it with my clients is we track our diet, our calories and protein, as well as other macros. We track our step count, we track our body weight, and then we track our progression in the gym. Because if we have those numbers and that data, we know whether or not it's working. We don't have to sit there every week going, oh, I don't know if I've made progress, because we can actually see it. And over the long term, eventually we see those changes in our physique because we have the data to go on. And also, this means we can adjust things if we need to. We know if things aren't working, we can pinpoint why it's not working, and we can actually change it. Like I said, this is all about building a physique predictable. Next thing is using specific phases. This is a really big mistake a lot of guys make. A lot of guys will just try and they'll want to get lean and jacked, and they just want to get in shape in one go. And they think, well, if I just start training hard and eating well, eventually I'll end up with the physique of my dreams. And that's rarely the case. You need to break this down into separate phases, because in order to get the physique you're after, you need to lose body fat, and you also need to build muscle. The best way to do it is to focus on one of those things at a time. Doesn't mean you can't build muscle whilst losing body fat, because you absolutely can. But especially if you're currently, right now, you've got more body fat than you would like, your first priority should be to lose that body fat. Get rid of it once and for all, and then bring your calories up steadily and move into a bulking phase, muscle building, lean bulking, whatever you want to call it. This is an example with the client John. So when he started his fat loss, we brought his calories down to 1900 and then eventually down to 1500. We had to go quite aggressive towards the end, but we got rid of the body fat. Over the following 8 weeks, we gradually built his calories back up and moved him into a muscle building phase, and we got him up to nearly 3000 calories. And his physique, he didn't gain any body fat. If anything, he looks better because now he started to fill out a bit. He's eating more carbs, and his training improved as well. And this is just an example of showing you different phases to work through. You might need to spend 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months dieting, getting rid of the body fat before you can move into a reverse diet and then into a muscle building phase. And it's so important that you stick with the phases and you don't do what a lot of guys do, where they cut for a little bit, then they feel skinny, then they bulk, then they go back into a cut, and a year's gone by where they've just yo-yoed back and forth, not making any changes. Nutrition tracking. So this comes back to the data-driven approach. You need to know your numbers, right? Eating clean, obviously, yes, eat nutritious foods, fruits, vegetables, good quality proteins, all of that is great. But you need to know the numbers. At the end of the day, fat loss even building muscle, it's not something that happens by chance, right? You need to know your numbers. Are you focusing on fat loss? Do you need to reduce your calories? Are you hitting those calories? Not just a few days a week, but across the week. You need to plan in for social events, birthdays, weekends, that sort of thing. And also, you need to make sure that you stick to your diet and have a plan over those periods. Because a lot of guys, they'll diet without realizing it. They'll hit their targets throughout Monday to Friday because they meal prep, eat clean. And then at the weekend, they just have a big blowout, think they're having a cheat meal, and they've undone all their progress. But if you know your numbers and you're being honest with yourself, not only can you plan for these sort of things, but you can have a bird's eye view of your entire week, so you know whether or not you've done what's required to get the progress each week. And then progressive workouts. There's a few things that might be going wrong with your workouts. Maybe they get missed every now and then because they're not blocked out. Maybe sometimes you train 5 days a week and then you train 3 days a week. You need to have a plan that you can stick to consistently. If you cannot stick to 5 workouts a week every single week, you should not be following a 5-day-a-week split. Maybe you should do a 4-day, maybe even a 3-day. You've got no set workout plan. Or if you do, it wasn't built for you. It's just one you found online, or ChatGPT built it for you. And you change your exercises based on how you feel. There's no consistency each week because of that, you cannot know whether you're actually progressing. You need to have a set program that's built for you. Yes, you can make tweaks if you need to, but there needs to be a focus on consistency, tracking your workouts, and making sure you're getting stronger. And the big thing as well, I'll just add with this, is if you're not making progress in the gym, if you haven't gotten stronger and you're not building muscle, I can almost guarantee you're not training hard enough. I've seen it countless times with guys who think they're training hard, and they say, "Oh, I haven't progressed in strength in 6 months. I'm not building any muscle." And then I look at their videos of their bench press or their squat, and the first thing I can see is, yeah, you're not training hard enough. You need to push yourself a lot harder. That is honestly, it's one of the hardest things. It's not hard to fix, but it's, yeah, in a way, it's one of the simplest things to fix. It's probably the most common reason why guys don't get results from their workouts. The split itself isn't as important as just training hard and aiming to get stronger over time. And that was one of the things I learned when I got that transformation in 15 months. So mapping this out, let's give you an example of what this might look like. All right, phase 1, the origin phase, the origin story, keeping with the superhero branding, of course. So the first phase here should be fat loss. Now, the reason we do this first is because, yes, you might want to be leaner and you might want to build muscle, but in order to build muscle effectively in the best way possible, you're going to want to increase your food, be eating enough calories to fuel your workouts, to see your strength go up, and also over time, your body weight gradually increase as you build muscle. The problem is, if you're not lean and you start doing that, increasing your calories, you're just going to add more body fat. And you're going to, yes, you might build some muscle, but you're going to feel more and more uncomfortable, and you're going to get further away from the physique that you want. So the first thing you need to do is get lean. This doesn't mean you need to get shredded to the bone, but you need to get down to like between 10 and 15%, where you can see good definition. The reason for this is because if you get yourself to that point, you're then in a perfect position to start increasing your calories and eventually go into a muscle building phase, because you will be able to stay in that muscle building phase for a long time. The problem with a lot of guys, like I said earlier about how they cut for a bit and then bulk and then go back and forth, is they don't get lean enough. So when they go into a muscle building phase, what happens is a couple of weeks, months go by, and they start to feel fat. So they go back into a cut. But then because of that, they haven't had long enough in the muscle building phase, so they didn't actually build any noticeable muscle. Getting lean enough solves that. It means you can spend a long time in a muscle building phase before you need to worry about doing a little fat loss phase to shave off some of that body fat that you've gained. The aims of this phase, like I said, get down to 10 to 13%, give yourself a long enough runway. You also want to learn how to diet and train correctly. Just because you're focused on fat loss doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying to build muscle. You should be training as if you're trying to build muscle, because that's going to do, A, maintain the muscle you've got, and B, probably help you build some, especially if it's the first time training properly. And you should never need to do a long cut again. Yes, you might do fat loss phases for summer, little shreds here and there, but if you've got quite a bit of fat to lose, you should never have to do one like this again, because the idea is to get rid of it and do it once correctly, and then maintain your new physique at a much lower body fat percentage. Phase 2 is the rise. This is the reverse diet. So when we finish a fat loss, we don't just want to go right back up to or go into a muscle building phase. Appetite's going to be high. You're going to have been on a lot lower calories. If you suddenly introduce a lot more food, it's a disaster waiting to happen. This is where a lot of guys end up just binging, overeating, and gaining a load of weight back in the first 1 or 2 weeks. So you want to be very strategic with it. Over a period of, it's different for everyone, but 4 to 8 weeks, gradually build your calories back up. Nothing crazy. We're talking like 100, 150 at a time, so that you get to a point where you're back up to maintenance, your appetite is normal. You're not crawling the walls because you've been on 1,500 calories in order to lose the body fat. And then you're in a position where you're eating more food, but you've maintained your fat loss from all the work you've put in before. You haven't just gained it all back again. Phase 3 is forge or muscle building. Now, there is no set timeline for this. 6 months as a minimum, because any less than that, it's just, you're not really going to build much muscle. A lot of these actor transformations where they get in superior shape inside, they do the whole thing in like 6 months, where they'll bulk up for 3 months and then cut down for 3 months. You're not going to build any noticeable muscle in that amount of time, in 3 months. It's a slow process if you're doing it naturally. So you want to have at least 6 months, in my opinion. The longer you can stay in a muscle building phase, the better. Most guys never build the muscle that they want because they never spend long enough in a muscle building phase, because they're always jumping back and forth between fat loss and then bulking for a bit and then cutting, and because they don't diet for long enough, they don't get lean enough in the first place. Now, during this phase, you want to be trying to get as strong as possible. Your main focus here should not be on trying to get your body weight to increase. Yes, it ideally, it should go up a little bit over time, but do not start chasing increases on the scales. If you do that, you are just going to get fatter. The main focus here is you want to be eating enough to fuel your workouts and be getting as strong as possible. So you might have certain lifts for your chest, for your legs, for your back, certain muscle groups. Over the 6 month, 12-month period, you need to be tracking these and making sure that you're getting stronger. You should be hitting personal bests. That's the main focus, because that is what's going to lead to building muscle over that time. And then over the period, you can strategically increase calories as and when you need. You can use mini cuts here and there. If body fat starts to creep up a little bit, you can do aggressive diets for like 2 or 3 weeks to shave off a bit of body fat and then go back into the muscle building phase, so that you can ideally spend as much time as possible in a muscle building state. And then phase 4, this is an optional thing, but I call it the reveal. And this is to do another fat loss phase, to kind of reveal what you've built over the muscle building phase. Now, this can take anything from 8 to 16 weeks, depending on how well you did your muscle building phase, how much body fat you gained or didn't gain, and how shredded you want to get. For my photo shoot, I dieted for quite a long time because I wanted to get as peeled as possible. I think if I started to take it any further, I'd be going into the realms of considering doing a bodybuilding competition, and that just didn't interest me. So I got as lean as possible for a photo shoot, in my opinion. And the goal here is basically the same as the first phase, to lose fat, but this time we're trying to reveal the muscle that's underneath. We want to be continuing to train hard to preserve our strength. And this is good for like a holiday photo shoot, a wedding, that sort of thing. But like I said, it should be a lot shorter than your first fat loss, because that first one, phase 1, that was to just get the bulk of it out the way. This is just pure like vanity. This is just, right, at the start of this, you should already look pretty good. And it's just about looking insane. You just decide, right, I want to look really fucking good for my holiday. So I'm going to do an 8 to 10 week shred to get even more shredded. So those are the 4 phases. That's just an example of how it could look. Last thing I'll say is on this is like I said, this is not something that you should just treat as a nice to have. On one hand, yeah, I understand you probably don't want to be a bodybuilder. You don't want to make it your full-time career. Neither do I. But there's nothing wrong with having a goal, having something that you're serious about achieving. A lot of people just treat the gym as it's just a hobby. I just do it to stay healthy. That was never my intention, and hopefully it's not yours as well. And understand that most people won't get this. Most people will think you're the weird one, because you're out meeting friends at family get-togethers, and you're the one saying, no, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to participate in the free food because I've got my meals planned already at home. I'm going to stick to that. You might be the weird one who's not going out drinking. Like I said, people won't get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to kind of accept that certain people, especially if they're the people who are not in the shape that you want to be, they will think you're weird. But at the end of the day, do you really want to look like them? That's the question you've got to ask. And you do need to make sacrifices in the short term, especially if you need to lose a decent amount of body fat in phase one. You may need to follow a fairly aggressive diet for 3, 4, maybe up to 6 months in order to get yourself into a position where you can build muscle. It will be worth it though. And the next thing as well is to rely on data over feelings. That's why I'm such a big believer in tracking things. If you don't track things, you have no idea if it's working. Dieting is hard. Training, especially when you're tired and you can't be, there are times where I can't be asked to go to the gym. There are times when my clients can't. We still do it anyway because we know that regardless of how we feel, we've got a goal we want to achieve. We rely on the data. We do what that's telling us rather than just how we feel in the moment. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's worth it. Being able to walk around with a shirt off, with a shirt on, knowing that you look good and actually feel confident in your physique, it's a feeling that you can only really describe it when you get there. But it means you're never insecure. You never have to worry, oh, do I need to wear a shirt that covers up my fat? I don't like the size of my arms. It's worth it. It's hard. Not gonna lie. There's nothing else to say on that. It's a lot of work, but it is worth it. When you get to be in a position where you are actually in control of how you want to look, and it doesn't feel like something that might happen, something that will only, if I'm lucky, you can actually control it and you decide how you want to look. That's a good feeling. What now? So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching all of it. You got 2 options. Option 1, you can go and do this on your own. Option 2, you can get help from someone who's already done it. So as you probably do know, I offer one-to-one coaching. I'm not going to do a big spiel, a big pitch about it. If what I've said here has resonated with you and you're sat there thinking, yeah, this makes sense. I can see the trajectory. I can see how doing this would get me the physique I want, but you're just not sure how to put it into practice. You'd like someone else to help you do it and map it out for you and guide you through the process. That's what my one-to-one coaching is for. So if you have any questions about how it works, or even if you just got some questions about something I mentioned in this video, you want to run by me, feel free to drop me a message. Even if you don't want to join my coaching and you've just got a couple of questions, more than happy to help out. Just send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, wherever you came across this video, wherever I sent it to you. Just reply back to me, and I will see if I can help out. But yeah, I want to thank you for watching, and yeah, go make some gains. Go start building your superhero physique. All right, I'll speak to you soon.